After a week in office, despite being fully briefed and having the same information as the Chancellor of the Exchequer had had for the whole of that year, Labour discovered a £20 billion black hole. It was a really big deal. They found it. The previous government couldn't find it. The Office for Budget Responsibility couldn't find it. They only found 10. But somehow, after spending £10 billion on freebies to their union mates, they'd managed to find a 20 billion. How could that be? Could it be 10 plus 10 is 20? Well, after the most disappointing start to a government in many years, which is really saying something after the Tories, Labour have reached the point that despite the fact that we're going to grow apparently at 1.2%, which by projections makes us the second fastest growing economy in the G7, they've managed to find a £50 billion black hole. It's really something. If I cast around and try and see what Labour have achieved in their first year, if I put on a left-wing hat, not very much. If I put on a right-wing hat, nothing. So it really is something. It's unique in our times that a government has managed to stuff our economy so much. Now people are going to say Liz Truss, Liz Truss, Liz Truss. Well, she hardly had time to cause damage, and a lot of that damage is far more complicated than it was her fault. She wasn't really given a chance to mess it up. Whether she would have messed it up or not is for the history books to decide. But the fact remains that after the special, wonderful Rachel Reeves budget, which had to take quite a long time to write it because it was going to set the tone for the next 5 years. There wasn't really going to be much adjustment. And then we had the autumn budget, where everything got totally rewritten again. And then Labour didn't have the balls to stand up to their members on difficult decisions. So now we're looking at £50 billion. Now, some of that will be borrowed, so your children pay for it. But most of it is going to come out of your pay packet. Well, Ronald Reagan would have told you that socialists like to spend your money like it's theirs. And I think it's fair to say that some of the expense claims suggest that's true. But imagine the economy as a house. If you lived in a house and you were paying £1,000 a month to live in it, and suddenly you had to pay £2,000, then unless you've got a lot of excess income, you would think, how the hell am I going to do that? And you would cut your cloth. You would change what you eat. You'd switch the lights off when you leave the room. You'd go on metered water and make sure that the shower gets turned off quickly. You would do a lot of things that cut small portions and added up to that £1,000 a month. And you wouldn't manage it. You'd account for about 300. So then you'd ditch your summer holiday. And you'd maybe not save because you haven't got the money to save. But you would cut your cloth. But a government doesn't do that. There are things that can easily be done. How many billions do we spend housing young men who have no affiliation to Britain, destroyed their passport on the way in, but get a free hotel, a free phone, a small amount of spending money a week, and then work tax-free as Deliveroo drivers? And I'm not singling out Deliveroo. Deliveroo's a company doing its thing, just like Uber Eats and all the rest. But we all know that this happened. And you're maybe saying, but the government's done something about it. Yeah, it's done something about it for the cameras to film, to make a bit of capital, something that everybody's known about for 5 years. I've known it for 5 years. Why hasn't the government? Well, the government has known. It just doesn't care because it's your money. GB Energy, how much are we spending on that? How many jobs has it produced? Supposedly it's going to create loads of jobs. Motability. There's one that was in the news a few weeks ago with its rather dubious health conditions for cars. Well, it might be standalone, but there's government money there. All of these schemes can be reduced. But that would mean taking money off their friends, taking money off their allies, and annoying their supporters who don't have to pay for it. So, are they going to do it? No. Instead, there's going to be a £50 billion black hole, and it will be serviced by taxing the richer, which is great. You know, in many ways, I'm not stinking rich. I feel the stinking rich should pay some money. I feel they should pay more. But when the top 10% pay 50% of the tax, you don't need to lose many of them to really lose out on tax. And you only need to look at South Kensington. South Kensington is full of French. And there's a lot of history as to why they're there, and I'm not going to do a 10-minute video on that. But quite a lot of them moved there because of the taxation in France. You could live a near Parisian lifestyle without paying the Parisian tax. How long would it take for them to go back if their taxes rose to be the same? And that's one of 1,000 examples. There is some debate over how many billionaires are leaving the country, or whether they even are. But every millionaire that's lost is a substantial loss of capital. That millionaire pays more tax than 500 of the lowest earners. Probably 10,000 of them. So who's going to give to the bottom 25% if even a couple of those decide to take their wealth out of Britain? And if taxes are raised heavily on the rich, they will have to ask themselves that question. You know, a lot of us are wealthy enough to have to pay the tax and poor enough to have no choice. The rich live in another universe. Black holes aren't a problem for them. They just go somewhere else. So, well done, Rachel Reeves. Rachel from Accounts has delivered a £50 billion black hole and has no plan to get us out of it. While she ridiculed the Tories 34 times for the imaginary 34 billion black hole, she's managed to increase it rather well. Congratulations on this new type of economics, as she heralded the new age. I do wonder if this will be enough for us to find a new Chancellor. Or does Labour really not have anything better than Rachel from Accounts?